Tributes to Kobe Bryant are everywhere throughout the NBA world, including at Target Center this evening in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where the Sacramento Kings will take on the Timberwolves in the Kings' final game of a 5-game trip. But it's Kobe Bryant that everyone is thinking of. Kobe was one of 9 people who died in a helicopter crash in Calabasas, California on Sunday. Kobe and his group were headed to his daughter Gianna, or Gigi's, game. Some of Gigi's teammates, their parents, and coach were also on the flight. There are no words that can express the grief going on throughout the NBA and sports world as everyone thinks about Kobe Bryant, dead at the age of 41. And that is how we begin a very special and somber Kings Pregame Live. Welcome in, everybody. I am Jim Kozimor, and by my side, Katie Hunter. And Katie, the only word that seems to come out of everyone's mouth throughout any way they try to describe this is just shock.
Shock, devastation. I mean, when you think about it as a whole, 5 families, entire world changed yesterday. And I think that this impact, we're talking about it in a sports context because of Kobe Bryant and who he was as a player and what he meant to this league. But his impact as a human being, I think, is far greater. And it's just complete sadness. And I give all the respect to those players that took the floor yesterday. I do not know how you did it. And they deserve the ability to grieve privately. So hats off to them that were able to do that.
At no matter what level we talk about, not just the NBA, we saw it in the women's game in college basketball. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But the city of Sacramento and Kobe Bryant also have a very special relationship, and part of it has to do with us going courtside right now. One guy who has called dozens and dozens of games involving Kobe Bryant, and another guy who has guarded him on dozens more occasions. Grant Napier and Doug Christie are there, and guys, take as much time as you want, but if you can, try and put some perspective on what everyone is feeling throughout the NBA world right now.
Well, I'll go first, only because I have a completely different perspective than you do. My perspective from an announcer in doing all those great Sacramento Laker games was really the guy that prevented all of us from having a parade and for you wearing a championship ring. And I mean, Shaq was great, but Kobe was the one that always made the big shot, and he always did it over and over and over again. And I've been doing this for 32 years, and I was blessed to come in with the Magic, Bird era, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. I've always put them in a class of themselves because of their will to win. So that was my perspective, because very often I would leave that venue saying, God, it's Kobe Bryant again beating us. But you're the one that was guarding him. You have a different perspective.
You know, the levels that Kobe pushed myself and our team to, whether it was in the offseason and training, trying to overcome that is, I think, the greatest gift that he gave to the game of basketball was his attention to detail and willingness to sacrifice of himself in a way that was, I don't know that you ever really seen it before, whether we watched an Achilles tear and free throws to playing with broken fingers and all the different things that he was willing to do. He uncovered every single rock and left absolutely nothing out there, and I think that's the way that we'll all remember and love him for it.
You know, Doug, the one thing now in his passing that you revealed to me that I was not even aware of, Kobe Bryant on the basketball floor was all business all the time, and it wasn't a guy that was going to come in after the game and put his arm around you and talk to you. Yeah. You never really had a conversation with Kobe Bryant, and what a shame, because you two have so much in common. The stories that you could have shared in preparing to play against one another would have been unbelievable.
Yeah, that was probably the most emotional part, was the inability, because when I took the court, I was all business. I might give him a fist bump, but up and beyond that, there was no words. There was words, but the words were physical. We did it with our bodies, and unfortunately, I never got the opportunity to sit down with him and talk about some of the battles and different things. And as you mentioned, the type of preparation to guard somebody like that, and then what he did to prepare for what was ultimately part of his greatness.
Jim, I spent about 10 minutes one-on-one with Luke Walton today. He spent 8 years as Kobe Bryant's teammate. Wow. He is really hurting, and you know, Katie talked about it. She didn't know how the guys played yesterday, and the coaches This is going to be a tough one for Luke Walton tonight. Kobe Bryant was a dear friend of his, and again, there's that bond, and Katie knows this, and Jim, you've been around pro sports your whole life, that you form, and Doug, when you're in a locker room day in, day out, on the road, in restaurants. Luke was sharing some of those stories with me. This is going to be a very difficult game for him to coach tonight.
Brent and Doug, thank you both for sharing your stories and the behind-the-scenes looks and your feelings, and we look forward to hearing more throughout tonight's telecast of the Kings-Timberwolves game. When we continue, we'll read the Kings' statement on the passing of Kobe Bryant. We'll also let you know what individual players and coaches are saying in their reaction to the tragic news.
Kings Pregame Live is presented by your California Ford dealers. Visit buyfordnow.com.
Kings and Timberwolves will play in Minnesota tonight, but the world, the NBA world, the sports world, still thinking about legend Kobe Bryant. The Kings put out a statement yesterday that said the world mourns the loss of a legend. We are all extremely devastated and saddened to learn of the tragic passing of Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gianna. Kobe is one of the greatest competitors the NBA has ever known. His storied career and commitment to the game is revered by fans around the globe. He inspired a generation on and off the court to strive for greatness, and his countless contributions to basketball will live on. We will forever remember the mutual respect shared between Kobe and Sacramento. On behalf of the entire Kings organization, we extend our deepest condolences to his wife Vanessa, their family, and all of those impacted as we hold them in our hearts and prayers at this most difficult time. And Kings players were active on social media yesterday. Let's begin with this one from Buddy Hield on Instagram. As a kid growing up in the Bahamas, you made me believe that anything was possible. The way you played, your passion, heart, and drive for the game will have a forever impact on my life. I thank God for letting you be a part of our generation. You're the greatest to ever step on the court. See you in paradise. You'll be missed. Hashtag Mamba out. Love you 24. Also, Bogdan Bogdanovic. Think of the global impact. The Bahamas, Serbia. Now it's Bogdan Bogdanovic on Twitter. I just lost my basketball father. There is no one that has impacted my game more than you, Kobe. So sad and tragic. And then Luke Walton taking to Instagram yesterday as well. This news is simply devastating. Kobe was one of the best to ever play and the hardest working athlete. He was a great role model and leader, a beloved friend and mentor for many, praying for his family and the families of other victims. Hashtag Kobe forever. Right now, let's go to Minneapolis, get reaction right now from the Kings head coach, Luke Walton.
Shock. Denial, all those things that we use to deal with really sad news. And it's been one of the harder times in my life this last 24 hours. You know, Kobe was a friend, a teammate, most importantly, a father. I know that's what was most important to him. The love he had for his family and his daughters is heartbreaking, and it's tough to deal with, honestly. He was, you know, the basketball world. We lost one of our greats, and I don't just mean that by what he did on the court, but just the way he lived his life. Every day, he got the most out of it. Whether he was attacking treatments or attacking skill sets, he lived his life to the fullest every single day, and he's an absolute inspiration, and I'm honored to be able to call myself his friend and his teammate and his brother and all those things that came with the years we spent together. And I and all of us are going to miss him very, very much. Whether you knew him or not, he was that type of guy, and he had that type of influence on the NBA world that everybody's hurting. And it's hard to think about playing, but I also laughed thinking about what Kobe would say. And, you know, it goes back to his mentality. So what? What's next? You know what I mean? No matter what he was looking down, no matter what the odds were against, he took on every single challenge. He would want us out here playing. He'd want us competing at the highest level. And that's, you know, to me, the best way we could honor him is really to play and leave it all out there on the court, like he did every single night. It was tough. He expected a lot out of us, but he also had a very soft, loving, fun side that when you got to know him, made you willing to do anything, to be on his side. And I still can't. I don't know if I fully accepted it, but it's really, really hard to think that we don't have him with us anymore. And my love and his family and his Vanessa and the other girls, I pray for him, and we're gonna miss him very much.
The Lakers and Clippers were scheduled to play on Tuesday night. About an hour and a half ago, the NBA made an announcement that the game will be postponed. It is done out of respect for the Lakers organization. The game will be rescheduled at a later date. That is without question a very smart decision by the NBA. One thing that you pointed out was you were amazed at how players were able to compete yesterday. The announcement that the Clipper-Laker game will be moved to a different date clearly is something that is very important for everyone to have a space to grieve. But this is one of those moments, Katie, where we will all look back and say, I remember where I was when I heard the news.
Oh, absolutely. And, my daughter was sleeping. She was down for her nap. And I'm not going to lie, when she got up, I just held her so tight because the loss of his daughter and what that family is going through and the two other children that were on that plane and the girls on that team that were waiting for their teammates to arrive, my heart breaks for them. So, yeah, I applaud the NBA for changing that game and postponing it.
You are emoting and speaking for many. There's little question of that. You are also being very strong at this juncture as well. So, Kobe Bryant passing away at the age of 41. The NBA world and the sports world mourns the loss of a legend. When we continue, our NBA insider Tom Haberstroh shares his thoughts. That's next.
Kings Pregame Live is brought to you by Ram Trucks. This year, Ram celebrates back-to-back Motor Trend Truck of the Year awards.
The Kings finish off a road trip 5-gamer at the Target Center in Minnesota. They will be taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves. There you see some of the things inside the stadium, players writing messages to Kobe. Everyone in the NBA world still thinking of Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gigi. You see jerseys around the league. You'll see any game on the slate, and I believe there are 6 on the NBA slate tonight, and you will see Kobe Bryant jerseys there as you see the number 24 above the scoreboard at Target Center. We get more perspective as we go inside the paint and bring in our NBA insider for the NBC Sports Group, and that is Tom Haberstroh. And Tom, this is a very difficult time to talk about this, but for you look back at the career of Kobe Bryant. Is there a biggest Kobe memory for you?
Yeah, it has to go straight to April 12th, 2013, the Achilles tear of Kobe Bryant when he went in on a drive against the Golden State Warriors and went down in a heap and looked back at Harrison Barnes, then a forward for the Golden State Warriors, and asked him, "Did you step on my foot?" And what happened was the largest tendon in his body, his Achilles tendon, had ruptured and rolled up in his ankle. And what did Kobe Bryant do? Well, it was the 80th game of the season. It was in the closing moments of that game, and he went to the bench on his own power, walked off an Achilles injury, and went to the free throw line and sunk both of the free throws like a superhero. I mean, when you watch the highlights, when you watched it live, when you hear about it, it does not compute. This was one of the most memorable moments of covering the NBA over the last decade. And I think in NBA history, the idea that a player in the 80th game of a season could rupture his Achilles, walk under his own power, and swish both free throws in the closing minutes of a playoff push just speaks to Kobe Bryant's greatness and the fact that he was doing things that made Buddy Hield, that made Bogdan Bogdanovic watch from Serbia and think this guy was a superhero, because no one does that. But Kobe Bryant did. And I think when I think about his career, the 81 points, the 60 points in the final game of his career, none of it holds a candle to what he did on that night, because I still can't believe that he was able to do that. And I think that is where the mystique of Kobe Bryant, the tenacity, the determination, the competitive fire, it all is personified in that moment on April 12th, 2013.
Tom, you talk about his will to win, his competitiveness, and in that moment, just he was superhuman, and that is something that he will be known for, but he will always be known as a prolific scorer in this league. What was it about him that made him so special from that aspect?
Every possession that you had against Kobe Bryant, you had to be ready for the entire toolkit. You know, like when I looked at Kobe Bryant's scoring seasons, the 2005-06 season stands out. He averaged 35 points a game in a season in which the Los Angeles Lakers averaged just 90 possessions per game. That's such a slow pace. He didn't have the opportunity to rack up 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 points because he only had 90 possessions as a team at his disposal. Compare that to Wilt Chamberlain in 1962. He averaged over 50 points a game, but the team that he played for at that time was averaging over 130 possessions. It was a track meet. He had so many more opportunities to score, on average 40 more possessions per game than Kobe's Lakers did in 2006. And when I looked at that scoring season, it actually, when you adjust for the pace of the era in the 2000s, the pace of the Lakers made that the greatest scoring season statistically of all time, because he was able to average 35 points a game in a climate that just did not produce big scoring numbers because it just was a very slow era. And I think Kobe Bryant, when we talk about the greatest scoring seasons of all time, we need to discuss Kobe Bryant's 2005-06 season, in which he averaged 35 points a game in one of the slowest eras in NBA history. Point per possession, there is no one better than that 2006 season. Not Wilt, not Michael, not James Harden. At the top of the list is Kobe Bryant.
That is remarkable. Those names you bring up are remarkable. That leads me to the reputation of Kobe Bryant. What is that? How would you define his reputation?
Champion. I mean, when you talk about players now, Buddy Hield and Luke Walton, who played with Kobe Bryant, and anyone else who watched him growing up and played with him, he has the utmost reverence in the league. Everyone looked up to him because of the fact that he was a champion on the court, five-time NBA champion. No Laker has more championships than him, than Kobe Bryant. I think when you look at the 2 Olympic gold medals, he has won at the highest stage of the sport. And he is a champion for another reason. He is a champion of others, a champion for women's sports. His daughter, Gianna, who he saw in his eyes as the next heir apparent to his legacy. And I think when Rebecca Lobo comes out and says that no NBA player has done more support, been a bigger supporter of the WNBA than Kobe Bryant, you have to pay attention. When someone like Kobe Bryant says that NBA players will soon be played next to a woman in the NBA, will make the NBA one day, maybe you laugh at that if it was just somebody on the couch. But it was Kobe Bryant who said that. It gives it more weight and it lifts everyone up in that conversation. I think Kobe Bryant is a champion on the floor, but I think he will be remembered, his reputation, his legacy going forward, I think will be remembered for the fact that he was a champion for others and not just a noun. He was a champion as a verb as well.
No, it has been a very long day for you. We know we have things at the My Teams app that you have posted. Tom Haberstroh, our NBA insider for NBC Sports, thank you very much for your thoughts on this. More to come on Kings Pregame Live when we continue. More on the extraordinary life of Kobe Bryant and some of the tributes from players around the NBA.
Kings Pregame Live is presented by your California Ford dealers. Visit buyfordnow.com.
Kings and Minnesota Timberwolves tonight in Minneapolis. For the Kings, they beat the Bulls with this lineup on Friday night. Fox and Bogdan in the backcourt with Barnes, Bielitsa, and Dedmon up front. In that game on Friday, Buddy came off the bench for the first time this year, finished with 21 points. He will come off the bench again tonight as the Kings and Timberwolves play. And now we will show you some images from Target Center. This earlier today, you see some of the things that players have written down on their shoes. Some things from around the arena. We saw that throughout the sports world yesterday. It was the global game of football or soccer that Kobe loved so much. Neymar had the gesture with number 24 after scoring a goal. Messi and Ronaldo on social media. And we saw Sabrina Ionescu from Oregon also tearing up. And she had written Forever 24 on the back of her shoes. She's from Northern California, from Walnut Creek, plays for Oregon. But everyone trying to do what they can to show their respect for Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be kind of one of the things that it's going to continue for the remainder of the season. The All-Star game in Chicago is around the corner, and this is something that is going to impact people for a long time. And I think the most interesting thing about this is that when Kobe retired, he left an unmeasurable impact on the game. But I think everyone was looking forward to what he was going to do next, because he was that type of person where you knew that he was going to take that energy that he had put in to being on the court and he was going to focus it somewhere else. And this image to me is the most lasting. The way that he was behind and pushing the women's game, that is the memory that I have of Kobe, not of him on the floor and what he was able to accomplish, what he was doing right here, talking to his daughter, supporting the WNBA, women's athletes. That was one of the next things that he was focusing on, and we'll never get to see that. We'll never get to see what his daughter was capable of, but it'll be lasting.
You are correct. All-Star game in Chicago will certainly have a lot to do with Kobe Bryant. Then the Hall of Fame announcement that came out that he will go into the Hall of Fame this year. So a lot more yet to be written about the Kobe Bryant story, and so much more was to come. But we'll leave you with these images as the Kings get ready to play the Minnesota Timberwolves tonight at Target Center.